Paragraph F.
Indirectly tracks one of the 20 years or the
Yeah. So, what is the idea that you're getting from this paragraph?
So, they're talking about this management, I think books, right? Uh, uh, Talks about different authors, I think, and their
This is
books.
talking about different authors, different books, and books which were poor. See, if you see, it says, see, Peters and Waterman's In Search of Excellence, Lessons from America's Best Run Companies achieved spectacular success. Michelle Hammer and James Champy's book, that also gained a lot of success, yet. Contrasting linker. So, whatever you are reading after yet, yet the early euphoria with which such books are greeted tends to wear off.
Okay.
So, the initial euphoria, the initial success, the initial, fame, name, and popularity that wore off, that was not there anymore. Why? Because the claims that it had made were not that solid. See?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in the case of In Search of Excellence, and they are giving the reason. So, there were certain books, there were certain authors who wrote certain books which were a big hit or rose to popularity at a certain point of time. But after that, gradually, that wore off. Okay. So what should be here?
Reasons. I think few book uh slightly confused with 3 and 7, but then I'm just trying to understand like here also
Example of a group of people who write particularly poor books.
poor book.
Yeah, they wrote poor books, right? Uh, they wrote poor books. I mean, Peters and Waterman, you get these people. Then you have Michelle Hammer and James Champy. They wrote poor books, right? I mean, the books, which wore off, right? On the basis of the fact that the claim starts to look less than solid, right?
Okay.
And if you say third one is talking about deserving to be success. But here in this paragraph, it's just the ulta. It's the opposite, right? It's saying that there were certain books which were written by some people that gained a lot of popularity initially, but then because their claims were looking less than solid, that is where they wore off. This sentence, from here to here, you will see how the popularity burnt out or how it wore off. I think
Okay.
heaven should be F. You can hold on. Okay, G. G for, uh, yeah.
Yet one of the virtues of this book is that they could be understood. There is a whole class of management. Whole class of management. This basic test. Jargon says simple reason for this flight from So this is the continuation of saying that some management books are not that good. All these things it has
Ah,
just.
right. It is probably giving the reasons, right? So I think that for this, this should be G instead of D. Correct?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, because a group of people.
Yeah, you see, this is talks about management text, right?
No, it is not
Then
only talking about management text, it is also giving you the reason. It's saying very clearly that
yeah,
there
yeah.
are certain books
So
which are stuffed with
some
jargon.
management books, if you see some management books stuffed with jargon, and then it talks about like all negative
No,
stuff
but
about the
I
management.
I think, okay, there's a small thing that I have to say. A belief, okay, yes, this is D. Okay, this is D. I have a small thing to tell you. If you look at this question, it says an example of a group of people who write particularly poor books. Correct? An
Mm.
example of group of people who write particularly poor books. Now, if you look at this paragraph, see this line. This line says, or this sentence says, that consultants are among the worst offenders. So, consultants is a group of people, who write very bad management books, who write very poor quality of management books. Correct?
Mm.
Okay, so I think this should be G. Because see, there is a fine line of difference. Even paragraph D was also talking about, management books which are likely to be very poor, but it is talking about a belief. But here in seventh one, it is saying very clearly an example of a group of people who write particularly poor books. And if you look at the paragraph, you will see
But
it.
consultants, okay.
So, if you have a textual evidence, so there are two things that you have to take care of when you're working on locating information in para. Either it has to support the idea from the para. When you're going through the paragraph, the idea that you interpret from the paragraph that gets supported, or you have a textual evidence. So here you have a very clear and straightforward, textual evidence. Consultants are among the worst offenders, right? So this paragraph is saying why the management books are failing, and consultants are the ones, who are writing very poor management books. And that is why it says they are among the worst offenders. Okay. All right.
Mm.
H. H for,
By contrast, the management thinkers who have rest of the time act Peter took as widely regarded as the toy and author. This time, this in contrast, right? This is all these things were negative, but then at the end, he's talking about couple of author who write the good books.
yes, right. So this paragraph is saying there are certain, um, you can say there are
It's about
basically,
positivity. We can try to find if there is any positive thing in that particular questions, right?
yeah,
Or
if
that.
you look at this paragraph, it says by contrast. So the previous
Mm.
paragraph is talking about, a group of people, consultants who are writing draws and drivel management books. And paragraph H is basically talking about people, who are writing, books with a lot of clarity, management thinkers who have stood the test of time. It also gives examples. See Peter Drucker, right? Charles Handy, right? So Drucker writes beautiful, clear prose and his thoughts come through. So this paragraph is saying there are certain writers who write good books and what are the reason that they write good books. So I think this should be the answer. Reasons for the deserved success of some books.
Yeah, this
right?
was a bit easier than all other questions.
This was easier than all other questions. Okay, so I think we are sorted in that case. So we have all the answers. Now let me give you the answers and we'll find out like whether we are correct or wrong. So always remember, locating information in para, either it has to be supported by the idea of that para, or you would be having some fact, data, detail, or some piece of information located in that paragraph. That's how you
Okay.
become certain. Otherwise, there is always a chance of becoming confused between the content of the two different paragraphs. So there's always a chance to get puzzled between two different questions. The way you became, like, see, fifth and seventh, we were confused, right? So in order to become certain about the right answer, these are the two things that you have to